Hi, I'm Erik Voss, and Comic-Con gave us a new trailer for Stranger Things Season 2, set to Michael Jackson's Thriller, a song that is both perfect for this trailer and too cool for a bunch of nerds like Mike and all of his friends. Now, I am obsessed with Stranger Things. So yeah, I did watch this trailer a million times, so much that I keep experiencing these flashes where I suddenly wake up inside of the trailer. Oh God, not again. Actually, this is awesome. Can I stay here? So I'm gonna break down all the stuff I noticed in this trailer, and in case any of these predictions end up being right, spoiler warning. So let's get started.
We gotta do this? Let's engage.
Okay, so it looks like Stranger Things Season 2 will continue the 80s nostalgia that made the show so famous in Season 1, starting with this memorable 80s arcade game of Dragon's Lair. Now, this was a little before my time, but the way it works is you play as Dirk the Daring, who's a knight who has to rescue the way too sexy Princess Daphne from a dragon called Singe in a castle of the evil wizard Mordok. And what made this game special is rather than feeling like a video game, it felt like you were controlling an animated narrative. And the animation in this was done by Don Bluth. He's the guy who did The Secret of Nim. Also in the 80s, he was a collaborator with Steven Spielberg, who of course is another filmmaker often referenced in Stranger Things. The two of them co-produced An American Tail and A Land Before Time. And if you look at the details here, it seems like Season 2 could begin the same way Season 1 did, with the boys playing this nerdy nostalgia game that actually foreshadows the story of the season, perhaps. So remember in Season 1, they played Dungeons & Dragons with the creature of the Demogorgon surprising them, just like it did in the next scene. And it was Will's turn when it happened in the game, and then naturally he was the first victim. And I think Dragon's Lair could end up foreshadowing Season 2. Like, notice how there's this girl who has to be saved by a beast in a dark magical place. Maybe 11 and the Demogorgon. Also, we know Episode 4 is called The Palace, which could be what the boys call a place they have to go to based off of details from A Dragon's Lair. And yeah, we do see someone holding a type of sword later on, the way that Dirk does. And this is Stranger Things, so there's a very good chance that we will see characters die, perhaps similar to the way that Dirk gets transformed into a skeleton. Actually, there are images of skeletons that show up several times throughout this trailer. Foreshadowing? Huh? We'll see. Moving on.
Hey guys, do you see the...
Okay, so then Will hears his voice whispering his name, and notice this snow falling outside the arcade. I think that's what Will's about to say here. Hey guys, do you see the snow? But this is October in Indiana. It's a little early for snow. That's because this isn't snow. Remember, we saw this in Season 1. These are the spore-type particles of the Upside Down. This was all designed by Aaron Sims Creative, and they were inspired by the look of games like Silent Hill and The Last of Us. But then Will goes outside and he sees the source of this voice, the new monster of Season 2. So what exactly is this thing? Let's talk about a few theories. The most likely answer is that this is the Thessal Hydra. Remember, at the end of Season 1, the boys are playing a new D&D game, and the Thessal Hydra is the monster. So the Thessal Hydra is a D&D creature with 8 snake heads. It's based on the Hydra from Greek mythology, which has 3 heads that grow back if you ever cut one off. But clearly the show's designers are going for an H.P. Lovecraft kind of look. Now, Lovecraft is known for massive scale god-type creatures. The most well-known of which is Cthulhu. They loom over the earth, and they're so large that only pieces of them are just barely visible through the clouds. I think they might be pulling from another Lovecraft figure called Nyarlathotep. I might be saying that wrong, kind of sounds like I'm saying a word in reverse. So unlike the outer gods of the Cthulhu universe, Nyarlathotep uses human languages to try to deceive people into thinking that it's human. And I think that sounds a lot like what this monster is doing to Will right here. Speaking to him in his own language to try to lure him outside and manipulate him. But if we're just looking at the visuals, there could be some other influences. For example, the Eldrazi from the Magic the Gathering game, also the giant at the end of The Mist, the Muto in Godzilla, the monsters in Gareth Edwards' other movie, Monsters. And as some of you have pointed out, this kind of looks like the amygdala, which is a boss from the game Bloodborne. So just like they did with the Demogorgon, it seems like the Duffer Brothers are pulling from a lot of different inspirations to create this monster, but we'll just have to see exactly what it's called and how it operates. Also, notice how the sky is red and streaked with lightning. Now, this doesn't really look like the Upside Down as we remember it, so I feel like this might be a whole new dimension that's bleeding over into the Upside Down. Like maybe last season what we saw as the Upside Down is really just a buffer dimension separating our dimension from this whole other hellish world that we'll see in season 2. Let's move on.
Nothing's gonna go back to the way that it was. Not really.
I saw something. What is it?
Okay, so here we are in the classroom, and we know that this empty seat belongs to Will, so Mike looking concerned could mean that Will might go missing again in this season. Of course, he could just be missing school for these tests that we see in this other shot. We actually saw this same security footage in the last teaser, but that footage had a date on it, but now it's been removed. So it seems like maybe Will is missing school on the day before Halloween. I'm not really sure why they wouldn't want us to know that now. Anyway, give me your thoughts on why you think that was removed in the comments down below. By the way, I think that scientist who's examining Will in this shot could be the actor Paul Reiser. Now, Reiser has been cast as a character named Dr. Owens. He's the guy from the Department of Energy who's in charge of containing the disaster from season 1. The Duffer Brothers wanted to bring Reiser on board as a nod to him playing a similar character in the Aliens movies, which of course were big influences on Stranger Things. He played Berg, who was an employee of the Wayland Corporation who heartlessly prioritizes scientific discovery over the lives of these poor innocent people. So I'm guessing he might be playing a similar type of figure in Stranger Things, allowing the Byers family and the people of Hawkins to be guinea pigs while the government is able to continue their research. And actually in between these shots, we get a quick look at Nancy and Steve, the power couple we kind of hated at first, but then later rooted for. Yeah, it looks like there's trouble in paradise. Now, this is obviously a fight about Nancy being pregnant with a Demogorgon slug baby. Wait, am I the only one to believe that theory? Or I'm thinking Steve might be frustrated by Nancy's lingering friendship with Jonathan, or maybe new feelings for the new kid on the block, Billy. Now, he's supposed to be a ladies' man, and interestingly, the actor was told to study Jack Nicholson's character in The Shining as inspiration for his character. Yeah, how could you not fall in love with that? Before I move on, notice this shot of these pumpkins. They look hollowed out, like maybe something's been feeding on them. Or this could be something else. So let's activate theory time. And you know what? This is Halloween themed, so let's make it spooky theory time. Okay, so to me, these pumpkins also kind of look like eggshells, like something might have been incubating inside of them, and now it has hatched out. Imagine a pumpkin version of these xenomorph eggs in Aliens. I feel like it would be so true to the Stranger Things spirit to ground this 80s style sci-fi into something so familiar and residential, the way that in season 1 they used seasonal iconography of Christmas lights and transformed it into something supernatural. Also, we know that episode 3 of season 2 will be called the Pumpkin Patch. So something important is going to be happening with these pumpkins. Actually, remember the slug that Will coughed up and then slithered down the drain at the end of season 1? Maybe that slug made it into the sewers and then later crawled out and laid eggs inside of all these pumpkins, and then each one hatched out of it. Honestly, I just want to see a scene with a family in Hawkins trying to carve a pumpkin, and the moment the knife is about to go in, a baby creature bursts out of it and scurries out the door. Okay, I might just be letting my imagination run wild. Let's move on.
I don't know. I felt it everywhere.
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize your neighborhood. And whosoever shall be found
Sometimes I feel like I still see her.
must stand and face the hounds of hell and rot inside a corpse's shell.
Okay, so after this look at Noah Schnapp's amazing acting as this terrified Will, we hear the iconic Vincent Price narration from Michael Jackson's Thriller. Really, Thriller is the perfect song choice for Stranger Things. It's super 80s and also super creepy. I love how this trailer evokes John Landis's short film for the song, showing the shot of these Halloween decoration tombstones with a skeleton hand reaching out of a grave, which feels like a reference to a similar shot during the Price narration section of Thriller. Now, speaking of the music, notice that when we move on to this next shot of a scientist freaking out as his terminal's lighting up, if you listen closely, you can hear some of these synth strings mixed in with the music of Thriller. Season 1 actually used this same sound effect when the lights of the Byers house went haywire. At the time, it suggested a link with the Upside Down. That's clearly what's happening here. And then after we get this ominous shot of Dustin seeing drops of blood, we get this really fun establishing shot of the Wheeler house, and there's a campaign sign in the front yard for Reagan Bush 84. Of course, Season 2 will take place on Halloween 1984, which is just a week before that presidential election. And I don't think we need to look too deep into the politics of this. I just like how this is another example of the nostalgia in the set design. Like if you were a family in Indiana in 1984, you were more than likely a Reagan family. It was a landslide election. Actually, back in Season 1, Mr. Wheeler made his political views pretty clear.
Oh my God, is she Russian?
Let's move on. Okay, here we get this master group shot of everyone in their awesome Ghostbuster costumes. I love how everyone in this trailer is dressed in Halloween costumes of whatever the big movie was that year. Of course, any group of 4 friends are going to be dressed up as the Ghostbusters. So notice that Dustin is Stan, Will is Spangler, Lucas is Venkman, and Mike is Winston. Then we see Hopper looking at this contour map of Hawkins. Notice how there's this removed section in the middle. I'm guessing that's Hawkins' lab because it's his super secret government lab that they probably didn't want on maps. But then notice all the X's around it. I'm guessing these are all for recent paranormal occurrences or sightings, and Hopper is realizing that they're all stemming from this lab. And then next we see the new girl in class and the new girl in the show, Max. She's played by Sadie Sink. Actually, the first episode will be called Mad Max, and it's probably about her. I mean, just look how mad she is. Now, I could see Max kind of becoming a romantic interest to one of these guys, but it's pretty clear that Mike's heart still seems to belong to Eleven. Just look how wistfully he gazes at this little hobo hut that he made for her, and still has. Actually, if you listen here, you can hear Eleven's voice saying, okay, my favorite shot of this trailer is this one of Dustin creeping up to this trash can armed with his Ghostbuster proton gun. Now remember, Dustin is Stance, and I feel like this fearful, slow approach is exactly like that scene with Stance and Slimer in the first Ghostbuster movie.
I'm gonna have to hold it myself.
And yeah, I just love the way Dustin keeps this thing, whatever it is, inside a trap. Just like the Ghostbusters do with all of their paranormal entities. Really, this is just like the kids applying the D&D logic to the Demogorgon. It's cool to see the Ghostbuster logic actually work for them. I just hope someone calls somebody dickless in the season. Let's move on.
Whatever is happening is spreading from this place.
What does it want? Not me. Everyone else.
So as we hear Hopper's voice say,
Whatever is happening, spreading from this place.
we see shots of him finding this ectoplasm on a tree and Nancy and Jonathan back in Hawkins' lab to see what Hopper's referring to, the rift that leads to the Upside Down. Now remember, we never saw this seal up at the end of Season 1, so it's still here and it appears to have grown. And it makes sense that more things beyond the Demogorgon could come through and infest the town of Hawkins. Good thing they have the best exterminators money can buy. We also see some shots of Will drawing like crazy, which, as we know from The Little Boy in the Ring, is never a good sign. Later on, we see the shot of Joyce and Hopper trying to connect all these on the floor. We also see them pinned up on the wall. Now, some people are saying that Will is drawing this monster that he keeps seeing in his visions, but I actually think that what he's drawing is a map showing tunnels that form an alternate path to the Upside Down. Like, I think throughout this trailer, when we see everyone navigating through tunnels, they're actually following this map that Will drew for them. Okay, so then after this awesome Avengers-style team-up shot with the crew circled up, Nancy ready to sharpshoot some demon, and Mike, well, I guess Mike's gonna give them a real wallop with that candlestick. We see this super rowdy high school Halloween party. And yeah, it looks like in Season 2, Stranger Things is gonna continue that depiction of high school social life in that same tone of Freaks and Geeks and John Hughes movies. Maybe a little Dazed and Confused mixed in there. And if you look closely, you can see that all these costumes are year appropriate. There's a kid on the left dressed as Johnny from The Karate Kid. That movie actually came out the summer before in 1984. And then the girl in the background is dressed as Madonna from Like a Virgin, which also debuted in 1984. And I think this guy with the red bandana might be trying to rock a Bruce Springsteen look from Born in the USA. That dropped the previous summer as well. Now, I'm not sure at all who Nancy and Steve are supposed to be. Like maybe with that black outfit and sunglasses, Steve is Johnny Cash? I don't know, that'd be kind of a dated reference for 84. Then we cut to this shot of a flamethrower and a person in a hazmat suit torching the upside down rift entrance. So it seems like someone is taking things in their own hands to try to kill whatever's coming through this portal. Also, I just love the flamethrower as a weapon. It's kind of the classic 80s sci-fi weapon. Memorably, it was used in The Thing and Aliens. Now, before I move on, I still don't really know what's happening in this shot of Hopper in a cabin as it's being torn up and debris flying everywhere. But remember, episode 7 is called The Secret Cabin. I actually think this is the cabin from that episode. Let's move on.
Will! Wake up!
Okay, we get another great shot of this trailer as Hopper goes down this tunnel as it literally turns upside down. I actually really like how the shot frames him to evoke the iconic silhouette of Indiana Jones. In the videos I made about season 1, I pointed out how David Harbour kind of seems to be drawing inspiration from Harrison Ford in his portrayal of the character. I think this indie style hat plays a big part of why we find his character so heroic. Okay, then we get another big cameo, Sean Astin. You might know him as Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings, but long before that he played Mikey in The Goonies, which was another huge influence on Stranger Things. Mikey was actually mentioned as a big inspiration for the character of Mike Wheeler, while Dustin is pretty clearly an amalgamation of Mouth and Chunk.
You never believed I said that they were gonna be very
About a fettuccine in 1981.
Like Paul Reiser, Astin was cast largely for his connection to these 80s movies. And here he plays Bob Newby, Joyce's new boyfriend. And he's wearing hospital scrubs here, which is kind of weird because his character has been described as an owner of a Radio Shack. So what do we think's going on here? Well, check out the background of the shot. Those are definitely some cops or security guards who are slumped over on the floor. I think Bob is on some mission on behalf of Joyce and maybe the kids. I think he's going undercover in this hospital. And maybe Hopper would have gone with him on that mission. And while Bob was trying to do things discreetly, Hopper just said, "What would Indy do?" and knocked the hell out of these guys. I don't know, let me know what you think is going on here in the comments. Okay, then after this badass shot with Jonathan, I think it's Jonathan, with a baseball bat with nails sticking out of it, and this Goonies style shot of the gang, we see Will running through the upside down version of his school as some darkness chases him. So this could just be a vision that Will is experiencing. Like in a second, he's gonna blink and wake up and find this hallway filled with normal students who are all pissed off at him for pushing past them and knocking over their science project. But I'm not really sure what this monster is. It kind of reminds me of the smoke monster from Lost. But it's interesting how it looks like the floor is giving out, kind of like the Stephen King movie, The Langoliers. Stephen King, of course, was a huge influence on season 1. But also, I think the floor giving away could be like it does in the game, The Dragon's Lair. Like, I have a good feeling that we're gonna see elements of that video game make their way back into the show as real threats that Will and his friends have to face. All right, let's move on to this final section.
If you're out there, just please give me a sign.
Okay, so just as we saw in that Super Bowl teaser, 11 lives. She wakes up in this upside down version of the classroom we saw her, which this shot cleverly shows by making her upside down. And notice how there's no trace of the Demogorgon, or Will for that matter. This is interesting. You would think you would see some corpse or particles of the Demogorgon around that room, but nada. So, is the Demogorgon still alive? Also, it seems like 11 has found a new rift back into this dimension through the school wall, but that seems a little easy, right? Like to have 11 vanish for months, just to have her walk down the hallway and find a way back into our world. I'm wondering if this hallway that she's pushing into isn't the normal dimension of Hawkins. I think this could be a third dimension that we haven't seen before. Remember, in season 1, their science teacher used that analogy of the flea and the acrobat to describe interdimensional travel. So the flea can walk upside down on the rope, but it can also walk on the side of the rope, or really any degree along the circumference of that rope. So my point is, I don't think our dimension and the upside down are the only two dimensions that exist in the universe of Stranger Things. Like, this is the Duffer Brothers we're talking about. Why not just use season 1 as a starting point to where we can build out and explore all this? So I think that in season 2, Eleven and Will are going to see what lies beyond. Let me know down below your thoughts about this trailer and some predictions and theories that I brought up, the new monster, those pumpkin shells, where Eleven is exactly, and the significance of the game, The Dragon's Lair. Let's keep this conversation going all the way to the season 2 premiere on October 27th. You can hit me up on Twitter at Erik Voss, or follow New Rockstars on Twitter at New Rockstars. And if you really like this channel, you can contribute to us on Patreon. Big thanks to all of our donors, especially Matthew Salvas. Thank you for watching, and snowing? Oh, damn it. Okay, I gotta feel around for a switch. Oh, Jesus. Everything's sticky.